Navy captain, and he was interred in the military seminary in Cape Canaveral, Florida. There was so much more to Sherry's life and ministry than events and numbers. He said one time in a sermon, "I have no way to quantify how many people I have preached to, how many baptized, married, buried, how many visits completed, how many meetings chaired, lots of meetings, how many dollars raised. The account is not in numbers, but in the heart." The account is not in numbers, but in the heart. Let's talk about the heart. Sherwood had a heart for genealogy. I'll get it. He traced his family back as far as the 1500s. I can't get mine back past about 1712. He proved to be a descendant of 12 of the 102, that's 10%, of the Mayflower passengers who came over in 1620. Family says he always began the family Thanksgiving dinner with a short prayer, and then, you know, you're in a minister's house, a mini sermon. You're going to get it, whether you like it or not. They always learn about Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving's Day. But Sherry's origins were shaped not just by books of genealogy, but they were shaped by his experiences growing up. One of those wonderful experiences happened right here, and he wrote an essay called Life with Grandma. Now, Grandma was Frankie, and Frankie's on that plaque right over there, right? Isn't that Frankie Voter on that plaque? The Sunday school superintendent. He moved here by himself in the Depression when the family lost their house. And some of the family went to live with other family in Elmhurst, and Sherry came up here, and he lived for a year, a very important year, in New Vineyard. He says life in New Vineyard was primitive, if not pioneering. Grandma's house had no bathtub, no running water, no flush toilet. We bathed once a week in a large metal tub set near the stove. We were clean enough, at least the equal of everybody else. We had a three-holer. Anybody remember three-holers? A lot of nodding here. A lot of people remember three-holers. We had a three-holer, each hole a different size. Okay? Each hinged with a wooden cover. It was inside the barn alongside the brook. We went out back from the kitchen door through the woodshed to the barn, undercover all the way. This was luxury. Only 2 rooms were warm, the kitchen with its cast iron stove, and the living room with the barrel-shaped iron stove. It did not enter my mind that Grandma was disadvantaged in any way, nor was she. Nor did I think my life with her backwoods living was also disadvantaged. Our New Vineyard neighbors lived the same way. It was the way we lived. Grandma was badly burned in 1935. She and her daughter Maxine were popping corn for Christmas tree bags. The corn spilled on the hot stove and immediately caught fire, and she tried to put the fire out. It caught her apron on fire, then it caught her sleeves on fire, and it was only when Maxine wrapped her in a rug that the fire was snuffed out. It scarred her arms. The burns scarred her arms. And he says in the essay, I love the line, thereafter she wore long sleeves. That's character. Thereafter she wore long sleeves. She didn't change her life. She kept going. That's what Sherry learned here. He learned to keep going. It impressed the small boy. Sherwood was his own person. And you can see that in the roots. Those roots built that character. His children remember him as a firm father, right? That's what you say, a firm father. He was a firm father, but he could be gentle. It takes a strong man to be gentle. A weak man is just weak, but a strong man can be gentle. Sherry was strong and he was gentle. Liz described him to me as a good man, a pure man, and a brave man. A good man, a pure man, and a brave man. That bravery is clear in my favorite story from Sherry, and this is sort of my last story from Sherry. He wrote an essay called A Trapeze Wheeze. A Trapeze Wheeze. And he writes in the essay that when the children were small, there was a teacher strike in Cincinnati, so the Cincinnati school district closed the schools. So they all went to Florida. They rented a car, they got a motel, but then they went to the circus. You know, you got to go to the circus if you go to Florida in the winter. At least you used to be able to. Anyway, they're at the circus. The ringmaster's standing in the ring. He's in charge of everything. Sherry says he wore a stovepipe hat, cutaway tails, white spats, and carried a swagger stick. His handlebar mustache went from left to right, from nose to lip. And he says we saw the parade of elephants and all the stuff at the circus. But what impressed them most was the aerialists, the trapeze people, the men and the women flying and flinging through all of it. So they do their act, they fall into the net one by one, and then the ringmaster stops everything. And Sherry says he brandished his swagger stick toward the crowd and shouted, "Who dares swing on the trapeze? Who volunteers?" Facing the opposite way, he slowly turned until he looked at us. No one stood. I twisted around to see if anyone behind had volunteered, and I stood for a better view. And lo, he directed the swagger stick at me. "Come down to the center ring," he shouted. I said to Liz, "I'm going." She had the presence of mind to say, "Give me your car keys." I fished them from my pocket. I handed them over and stepped down the stands to the center ring. A female trapezist looped a canvas belt around my middle, clinched it tight, secured it with a 4-pronged buckle. The belt ran through sturdy male rings, one on each side. To them she fashioned ropes that reached high. They were over pulleys threaded and trailed back to the ground, and roustabouts held the ropes. You get the picture? He's hooked up to this apparatus. And she says, "Give me your glasses." I did. "Climb," she said. I did so. A shoe-wide metal ladder was bolted to the tent pole. I inserted one shoe with the next directly above it, hands the same, climbed up the pole. The roustabouts took up the slack. I climbed up 40 feet high to a little platform. A male performer awaiting gave me a hand. The trapeze hung motionless well below and away. He hooked it up to us. "Grab the bar," he said, "wrapped with friction tape." I grabbed it with both hands. "Swing over and back," he said, "and then swing to the far side. Pull your feet up over your head and let go." "Sure," I replied. "Sure." The ringmaster silenced the crowd, the band stopped, the lights dimmed, the spotlight illumined me, the drummer began his roll, the athlete shouted, "Now," and he let me go. I plunged down in an arc so fast I could barely hang on. I swept to the far side and back to the platform. I flew again to the far side. I raised my legs. I bounced up and down, coming to rest in the net. Putting my hands under the edge of the net, I tumbled my feet over my head to the ground, their natural habitat. The female returned my glasses, removed the belt, and set me free. With much applause, I ran up the steps to my family. Someone seated nearby said, "It's a put-up job." But I said to my wife, "Give me back my keys." It wasn't a put-up job. Nothing about Sherwood Anderson was phony. Nothing. He was totally authentic. As a minister, a Navy chaplain, a husband, a father, a grandfather, a friend, most of all, as a man of faith. Last month, Sherry flew again. On June 4th, early in the morning, Jesus, the great ringmaster of the circus we call life, pointed to Sherwood and said, "Come down to the center ring." And he said, "I'm going." And he did. He climbed up that pole 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000, 10,000 feet into the clouds. An angel handed him a trapeze bar and said, "Swing over there and let go." And he did. He swung over there and he let go. And he flew. And he still flies. And so shall we, if we have the faith that our Lord gave us. We shall fly with Sherwood. Oh God, give us the faith that you gave this man, that we too, when our time comes,